It was the kind of funeral that didn't feel like grief, more like a performance. Everyone dressed in black designer suits, dark sunglasses, and forced tears. My father's empire was gone, and with his death came a silence so thick it suffocated the hall. The chandeliers above us flickered against the gold-trimmed ceiling, as if they too were trying to decide whether to shine or mourn. I stood near the back, the son nobody ever mentioned. The one who didn't fit the mold of a perfect heir. My uncles whispered about me, the quiet disappointment. My cousins avoided eye contact, pretending to scroll through their phones while seated on velvet chairs that probably cost more than my old apartment. When the lawyer walked in, everyone straightened up. His name was Mr. Rowan, and he had that calm, confident walk of a man who held power, not by wealth, but by what he knew. He placed a thin leather briefcase on the podium, cleared his throat, and began. "The late Mr. Calder left behind not just assets," he said, "but instructions." The room buzzed. My eldest cousin, Luke, leaned forward with his smug grin. He was the one who'd run the company into the ground after convincing my father to trust him. When the losses began, they blamed me for walking away, calling me ungrateful, but no one ever asked why. I walked away. Mr. Rowan started calling names. Each one of them got something: a penthouse in New York, a yacht moored in Monaco, a private art collection insured for millions. The cousins clapped shoulders, laughed softly, pretended to be modest. But when the last name was read and mine wasn't mentioned, all heads turned toward me, the silence sharp. "Cutting, Mr. Rowan." My aunt's voice sliced through the tension. "I believe you missed someone." He didn't flinch. "No, Mrs. Calder, I didn't." He looked directly at me, then, almost theatrically, he reached back into the briefcase and pulled out a single brown folder. He held it out in my direction. "This," he said, "is for him." The whispers returned, louder this time. Someone chuckled. Someone else said, "A folder? That's his inheritance?" I walked forward, the weight of every stare pressing on my back. The folder was thin, light, too light to hold anything valuable. On the front, my father's handwriting, "For Ethan, when they finally show their true faces." I didn't open it right away. I just stood there staring at the words that felt like a secret meant for me alone. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the ache of years spent being invisible. Luke leaned in with his smirk. "Maybe it's a job offer," he whispered loud enough for the room to hear. Laughter rippled through the hall. Mr. Rowan's eyes, however, didn't share the humor. He simply said, "You might want to read that in private." I nodded and turned toward the exit, ignoring the murmurs that followed me out. Outside, the cold air hit like reality, sharp, bitter, cleansing. I stood beside the black limousine lineup, the city's skyline glimmering like glass knives under a fading winter sun. I opened the folder. Inside was a single envelope, sealed with red wax, and beneath it, a photograph. It was old, the kind of photograph you'd find in a forgotten drawer. My father stood beside a man I'd never seen before, both smiling, both wearing military uniforms. Behind them, a burned building and a half-torn sign that read, "Rothwell Ironworks." My stomach tightened. That name sounded familiar. I'd seen it once before, engraved faintly on a ring my father never took off. I broke the seal. A single page, typed. No greeting, no date. Just words. "Ethan, if you're reading this, it means the vultures have gathered. Don't fight them yet. There's something they don't know. Something that was never written into any will. Go to the old Rothwell site at dawn. Look for the red door. And whatever you do, don't trust the one who smiles first." The paper shook slightly in my hands. The red door. The name, Rothwell. And that final line, "Don't trust the one who smiles first." Was it a warning? A test? I looked back toward the church, where laughter still spilled through the doors. They'd already moved on to champagne, to pretending they cared. For years, I thought my father resented me, for leaving, for refusing to be molded into another colder suit. But now this didn't feel like resentment. It felt like preparation. I caught my reflection in a tinted car window. The dark circles under my eyes, the tension in my jaw. I barely recognized the man staring back, but the look was different now, steadier, determined. I folded the letter and tucked it into my coat pocket. The photograph, too. As I started walking down the steps, Mr. Rowan appeared beside me. "You should go soon," he said quietly. "Before they realize what's missing." "What's missing?" I asked. He gave a faint smile, the kind that hides more than it reveals. "You'll know when you get there." And just like that, he walked away. That night, I didn't sleep. The words replayed again and again in my head. Go to the old Rothwell site at dawn. Don't trust the one who smiles first. By morning, I was standing on the edge of the city's industrial district, the kind of place time forgot. Rusted factories, broken windows, metal skeletons echoing with wind, and there it was, the faded sign still clinging to a chain-link gate. Rothwell Iron Works. The sun hadn't risen yet. The air was damp, metallic. My boots crunched over shattered glass as I walked through the open gate. Every instinct told me to turn back. But my father's voice, the one I'd tried to forget, echoed softly in my head. Sometimes. "Ethan, silence hides the loudest secrets." The factory loomed ahead. Its windows boarded, its walls tattooed with decades of graffiti. And then I saw it. A red door. Faded, but still red, half covered in rust. But unmistakable. I reached for the handle. It resisted. At first, then gave way. With a long metallic groan, the air inside was heavy, with dust and oil. Rows of broken machinery lay like bones in a forgotten graveyard. And right there in the center of the room, under a narrow beam of morning light, sat a single wooden crate, fresh wood. Recently placed, my pulse quickened. The letter crumpled slightly in my fist. As I stepped closer, something glinted on the lid, a metal tag, screwed in place. I brushed off the dust and read the engraving. To Ethan Calder, property transfer. And just as my fingers reached for the latch, a voice behind me said, calm, almost friendly. "You shouldn't be here alone, cousin." I froze. The voice was too familiar, too smooth to be anything but trouble. When I turned, Luke was standing by the broken window, sunlight bleeding through the dust behind him. He was dressed like he always was, too expensive for the place he was standing in. His navy overcoat fluttered slightly as the morning wind slipped through the cracks. "How did you find me?" I asked. He smiled. That damn smile. "I followed the only person who didn't look like they belonged at the funeral party," he said, walking closer, his shoes crunching over debris. "You looked nervous, and now I see why." My fingers tightened on the crate's latch. "You shouldn't be here, Luke," I warned. "This has nothing to do with you," he chuckled, taking another step. "Oh, come on, Ethan, you think you can hide things from the family? Especially after Dad's gift." His voice dripped with mockery. "A folder? What was it? Your father's apology letter?" The tension in the air thickened. The echo of his shoes, the creak of metal from somewhere above, the faint drip of leaking rainwater, all of it merged into a rhythm that felt like a countdown. I said nothing. Instead, I opened the latch. The lid creaked open, revealing stacks of neatly wrapped folders inside, each marked with red seals and handwritten labels. My breath caught when I read one of them. Rothwell, Confidential Assets, 1998-2015. Luke's smile faded. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "What the hell is that?" "I don't know yet," I said, even though my pulse was screaming otherwise. He reached toward the crate, but I slapped his hand away. "This isn't yours," I said sharply. He sneered. "You think you're the hero now, huh? The prodigal son who walks back into the ashes and suddenly finds treasure?" Then softer, leaning closer. "Don't be stupid, Ethan. Whatever's in there belongs to all of us." He said all of us like it meant something. Like the same people who laughed at me, who called me worthless, suddenly remembered I shared their blood. I took one of the folders out, flipping it open. Inside were old photographs, warehouses, docks, machinery, receipts, and handwritten notes from my father. Some pages were stamped confidential, some bore signatures I didn't recognize, and then, buried beneath the papers, I saw a single document labeled Ownership Transfer Clause, Rothwell Ironworks. It was dated 4 months before my father's death. Luke's voice trembled. Wait, he still owned this place? Looks like it, I said, but there was more. My eyes caught a second page stapled to it, something my father had handwritten himself. Assets transferred to Ethan Calder, effective upon my passing. Under no circumstance may this be contested. Rowan will know the verification key. My stomach flipped. My father had hidden an entire property, maybe more, and left it to me. Luke laughed again, but this time it was strained. This is insane. You think a few papers make you the owner of all this? I stared at him. You didn't know, did you? His jaw tightened. Doesn't matter. None of this will hold. You've got nothing, Ethan. Just a dead man's words. He turned and started pacing, muttering under his breath. His arrogance was cracking now, his composure slipping. I could see the panic creeping in around the edges. Then I noticed something glinting under the crate, a small metal box, half buried in dust. I crouched down, pulled it free, and set it on the crate. The lock was old but not sealed tight. I twisted the latch and lifted the lid. Inside was a key, heavy, brass, engraved with a tiny emblem of a lion holding a gear. Beneath it, a flash drive wrapped in paper. Luke lunged forward. Give me that. Stay back, I barked, stepping between him and the box. He stopped, barely. His eyes darted between the key and the flash drive, then to me. Whatever you think you found, he said, his voice lowering to a dangerous calm. You won't keep it. You were never supposed to have anything. I looked him dead in the eye. Then maybe that's why he left it to me. We stood there, staring each other down in the hollowed-out remains of the ironworks. For a moment it was silent, until my phone buzzed in my pocket. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Ethan Calder? The voice was firm, professional. Mr. Rowan? Yes, I said, glancing at Luke, who watched like a hawk. Good, Rowan said. I trust you're at Rothwell? How did you… I told you to go early for a reason, he interrupted. You're not safe there. Those documents aren't just about property. They're proof of transactions your father made off record. People have been searching for them for years. Transactions, I repeated. You mean illegal ones? A pause, then. Let's just say your father was protecting something larger than money. The folder you found, the red seal, it's your leverage. But it's also your target. Leave now. Don't let anyone else see it. Before I could respond, Luke snatched the phone from my hand. Who is this? He snapped, a long silence. Then Rowan's calm voice came through the speaker. Mr. Calder. I assume this is Luke? Luke froze. How do you… I warned Ethan not to trust the one who smiles first, Rowan said. Now I see why. The line went dead. Luke's face twisted with anger. What the hell did he mean by that? I didn't answer. My heart pounded as I slid the folder back into the crate, grabbed the flash drive and key, and stepped back. Stay out of my way, Luke, I said, my voice low. I don't want this to get ugly, but it was already too late. He lunged. We collided hard, papers flying across the floor. The crate toppled over with a crash, spilling documents everywhere. My shoulder slammed into the ground, pain shooting through my arm, but I managed to grab the flash drive before he could. Give it, he shouted, his hand gripping my collar. I shoved him back, gasping. You never change, do you? Always taking what's not yours. He swung at me, and for a split second, I saw the same kid I grew up with, the one who used to smile before greed carved that expression out of him. His punch missed, slamming into a rusted pillar. The sound of pain filled the air, but he didn't stop. I backed away toward the exit, clutching the key tight. You can keep the ashes, Luke. I'll take what's left of the truth. Then I turned and ran. The sound of his footsteps followed for a few seconds before fading. When I burst through the red door, the cold air hit me again like a slap. I didn't stop running until I reached the road. I collapsed beside an abandoned truck, breathing hard, my hands trembling. The flash drive. The key, the folder, pieces of a puzzle my father had left behind, and a warning that now made perfect sense. Don't trust the one who smiles first. Luke had smiled the moment he arrived. I pulled my phone out again. No signal, no cars. Just the whisper of wind through metal ruins. Somewhere deep down, beneath the fear, something else stirred, a realization. My father had left me something that everyone wanted, but no one understood. And Rowan, he was part of it. That evening, as the sun dipped below the city skyline, I finally reached an old cafe near the river, one I remembered from my childhood. Rowan had mentioned it once, back when I was still young enough to believe my father's friends were just business partners. The sign above the door read, Calder & Sons Foundry Cafe. I stepped inside. It smelled like dust, coffee and memory, and sitting in the far corner, in the same tailored gray suit from the funeral, was Mr. Rowan. He looked up, nodded once, and gestured for me to sit. I placed the folder and key on the table. You knew he left this for me, Rowan folded his hands. I did, but what you don't know yet, Ethan, is why. I leaned forward. Then tell me, he sighed, looking out the window for a long moment before meeting my eyes again. Because your father didn't just build a company, he said quietly. He built something hidden inside it, and now you're the only one who can unlock it. For a moment I didn't breathe. The words hung between us like a storm waiting to break. What do you mean, something hidden? I asked. My voice came out hoarse, low. What could my father possibly build that no one knew about? Rowan leaned back in his chair, folding his hands slowly. His eyes held that sharp, assessing look of a man who's seen too much truth to bother softening it anymore. Your father was smarter than people gave him credit for, he said. Everyone saw the businessman, the man who built Calder Steel, the factories, the contracts. But underneath all that, he was protecting something. Something worth far more than his entire company combined, I frowned. You're talking in riddles. Rowan's lips curved faintly. Because riddles kept him alive. And now they might keep you alive too. He reached into his briefcase, pulled out a weathered envelope, and slid it across the table. You'll want to see this. Inside was a single black and white photo. My father stood beside another man, the same man from the Rothwell picture, but younger, leaner. Behind them was a wall covered in chalk equations and chemical formulas. What is this? I asked, studying it. That, Rowan said, tapping the picture, was the first prototype of the Calyx process. The what? He smiled faintly. Exactly. No one outside your father's circle ever knew it existed. It was an alloy refinement process, cleaner, stronger, 20% cheaper than anything in the market. But here's the catch. He never patented it. Why wouldn't he? Because, Rowan said, lowering his voice, he didn't trust the family. Especially not Victor, I blinked. My uncle? He nodded. Victor wanted control of everything, the company, the properties, the money. But your father realized something years ago. If he patented the Calyx process, the board would sell it, and the innovation would end up owned by the same people destroying the industry. So he hid it, coded it inside company documents, buried across Rothwell's ledgers. I looked down at the flash drive still in my hand. My pulse quickened. And this is the final piece, Rowan finished. The decryption key. Your father split it into two halves. One physical, he pointed at the brass key on the table, and one digital. That drive unlocks the true company accounts, the ones that show where the Calyx process data was hidden. I stared at him, disbelief warring with realization. You're saying my father left me the key to billions. Rowan's expression didn't change. I'm saying he left you the key to the truth. Money is only part of it. The process could rebuild everything. And someone already knows you have it. My chest tightened. Luke? Rowan nodded slowly. And not just him. Victor's people have been watching you since the funeral. I glanced toward the window, instinctively scanning the street. Cars passed, but one, a black sedan, was parked across the road, engine idling, headlights off. You're saying they'd come after me for this? I asked. I'm saying they already have. Rowan's tone darkened. That message your father left, about not trusting the one who smiles first, it wasn't just about Luke. It was about everyone who stands to gain from your silence. The air in the cafe seemed to grow colder. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator behind the counter, the faint creak of the wooden floor beneath my boots. Every sound felt amplified, like my body had gone into survival mode. What do I do now? I asked finally. Rowan's answer was immediate. You go where he told you next, I frowned. He didn't tell me anything else. Rowan reached into his pocket and slid a small card across the table. On it was an embossed insignia, a lion holding a gear, identical to the one engraved on the brass key. Your father was methodical, Rowan said. Every symbol meant something. This one, he tapped the card, belongs to a holding company he created 15 years ago. Lion and Gear Industries. On paper it was dissolved after a merger, but the address still exists. An old bank vault downtown. If I'm right, that's where the second set of ledgers are. I picked up the card, my mind racing. And if you're wrong? Rowan gave a small, humorless smile. Then we'll both find out the hard way. I pocketed the card, the key, and the flash drive. You're not coming? He shook his head. This next part is yours. And Ethan, he paused, leaning forward slightly. Be careful. The closer you get to the truth, the fewer people you can trust, including me. That last line stayed in my head long after I left the cafe. Downtown at night looked different, colder. The glass towers that glimmered by day now loomed like dark sentinels, reflecting neon and moonlight off their facades. The streets were half empty, just the occasional car, the hum of a passing bus, and the whisper of wind cutting between skyscrapers. The address led me to a marble building near the river. Its front entrance boarded up, but the side door still accessible. The words, Lion and Gear Holdings, were faintly visible above the cracked stone arch. I used the brass key. It turned smoothly, almost too easily, as if it had been waiting. Inside was a narrow stairwell that led down to a basement lined with old safety deposit boxes. The air smelled of iron, oil, and forgotten time. Dust coated everything in a thin gray layer. My phone's flashlight cut through the darkness. The numbers on the boxes passed by, 42, 43, 44, until I saw it. 47. A small brass plaque beneath it bore one word. Calder. My breath caught. I crouched and inserted the key. It fit perfectly. The latch clicked open. Inside the box was a single leather-bound book. On the cover, engraved faintly, Calyx. My hands trembled as I opened it. The first page was filled with equations, diagrams, and coded notations, but near the back, in my father's unmistakable handwriting, were words that froze me. If you're reading this, Ethan, it means the board has taken control. Rothwell was never about steel. It was about freedom. They wanted the process to sell. I wanted it to protect people. What you hold is more than an invention. It's leverage, the kind that can rebuild everything they destroyed, but only if used wisely. There's one man who can help you, Marcus Kane. Find him. Trust no one else. The name hit me like a lightning bolt. Marcus Kane, my father's old partner. The man in the photo. The one everyone said died 15 years ago. I flipped the page. There was a small envelope taped to the back. I peeled it open and found a folded map, an old industrial layout of the city's south docks, with one section circled in red. Dock 19. I barely had time to process it before I heard the faint echo of footsteps behind me. I spun around, light cutting through the dark. Luke stood at the top of the stairs, his face half lit, half shadowed. His voice carried down like poison. So this is where he hid it. How did you find me? I demanded. He smirked, starting down the steps. You really think you're the only one who can follow clues? You forget, I was trained by the same man you call father. He's not your father, I said, my voice low. He stopped a few steps above me, eyes cold. He raised us both, didn't he? He just didn't love us equally. The pain in his tone almost made me falter. Almost. Then he drew something from his coat pocket, a small black pistol. I didn't want it to come to this, he said. But you've left me no choice. My body tensed. The flashlight trembled slightly in my hand. Luke, I said carefully, listen to me. This isn't what Dad wanted. He tilted his head, smiling sadly. Then he shouldn't have kept secrets. The metallic sound of the safety clicking off filled the room. Put it down, I said, stepping back. We can figure this out together. Together? His laugh was soft, hollow. You never wanted that. You left. You ran from the family, from him. Now you think you deserve what's his? He raised the gun, his hand steady now. I deserve the truth, I said. And if you'd stop trying to be him for 1 second, maybe you'd see he wanted that for both of us. Something flickered in his eyes. Hesitation, maybe. But it didn't last. He took another step down, and another. Luke. I started. That's when the power cut out. Total darkness. Only the sound of my heartbeat and his sharp intake of breath. Then a single line of light appeared behind him, the door opening. A silhouette stood there, calm and unmoving. A man's voice echoed through the stairwell. That's enough, boys. Put it down. The voice was low but commanding, the kind that made both of us freeze without thinking. Luke's gun wavered, his eyes darting toward the shadowed figure standing in the doorway. The beam of light behind him framed his outline, tall, broad-shouldered, steady. When he stepped forward, I finally saw his face, older now. Gray streaks in his beard, but the eyes. I recognized them instantly. Marcus, I whispered. Luke's grip tightened on the gun. You're supposed to be dead, Marcus Kane smirked faintly. So are a lot of men who outsmart Victor Calder. He descended the stairs with a slow, deliberate calm, each footstep echoing through the vault like a gavel strike. His presence filled the air, controlled, unshakable, radiating the same quiet confidence my father once had. Put the gun down, Luke, Marcus said, his tone even. You're angry, I get that. But anger makes men stupid. And your father? Well, he already played his hand stupidly enough, my father. Luke snapped. You mean his father, right? He jerked the barrel toward me. The golden son who got everything? Marcus sighed. You both think you were cheated. That's the real tragedy here. I stepped forward cautiously. Marcus, what's going on? Why did my father leave all this to me? His eyes shifted to me, sharp, assessing, almost proud. Because you were the only one who didn't ask for it. That's why your father trusted you, Luke laughed bitterly. Oh, please. Spare me the moral sermon. You think this is about trust? This is about legacy. About control. Marcus ignored him and gestured to the open lockbox. You found the Calyx notes? I nodded. And the letter. He said you could help me. Marcus's jaw tightened. Then he was right. He turned to Luke. Victor's been hunting that formula for years. He believes it's his by right. He's already started moving money through offshore accounts to buy out what's left of Calder Steel. But if Ethan registers the Calyx process first... Luke's eyes widened slightly, realization dawning. He'd lose everything. Marcus nodded. Every asset. Every patent. Every ounce of power. All gone. Back to the rightful heir. Luke's knuckles whitened on the gun. You're lying. Marcus's voice didn't waver. I was there when we wrote it. Your uncle made his empire by stealing from the people who built it. But your father, he wanted to set things right. The Calyx process wasn't just a formula. It was a way to return control to those who were crushed by his brother's greed. The silence that followed was thick, heavy. Luke's breathing grew uneven. He looked from Marcus to me and back again, as if the truth were too sharp to swallow. You expect me to believe he was a saint? Luke spat. He destroyed everything we had. No, Marcus said quietly. He destroyed the illusion. The rest was already rotting. Luke's face twisted with fury. His voice cracked. And what about me? What about the son he never wanted? Marcus stepped closer. He wanted you both. But only one of you listened. The tension snapped. Luke raised the gun again. Enough! Instinct took over. I lunged forward. The gun went off, the deafening sound echoing through the vault, metal ringing, ears splitting. Marcus flinched, but didn't move. I hit Luke hard, the gun clattering to the floor, spinning across the concrete. For a few seconds, we grappled, raw, desperate. His fist caught my jaw. Mine connected with his ribs. The fight wasn't clean, wasn't cinematic. It was two brothers trying to beat years of pain out of each other. When I finally knocked him back, His breath came ragged. Sweat glistened on his forehead, his anger fading into something hollow. Marcus picked up the gun, emptied the magazine, and tossed it aside. "We're done playing with fire." Luke leaned against the wall, sliding down to the floor. He looked up at me, eyes burning. "You think you're better than us, Ethan? You'll end up just like him, alone." I stared at him, chest heaving. Maybe, but at least I'll know the truth. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Only the hum of the old air vents filled the silence. Then Marcus placed a hand on my shoulder. "We need to go, now, before Victor realizes his son failed." The streets outside were quiet again, the city asleep under a blanket of cold fog. Marcus led me through an alley toward a black SUV parked under a flickering streetlight. Inside, he handed me a small metal device, sleek, encrypted, and humming faintly with power. "What is this?" I asked. "The Calyx archive," he said. "Your father backed up everything. The blueprints, the accounts, the legal proof of ownership, all hidden in one quantum key. That flash drive you found earlier only unlocks this." I looked at the device, realizing what it meant. "If Victor gets this—" "He won't," Marcus interrupted. "He doesn't even know it exists. But he knows you're alive, which means you've got a target on your back." I swallowed hard. "So what now? I go into hiding?" Marcus shook his head. "No. You do what your father couldn't. You finish it." He leaned back in his seat, his voice low, steady. "Tomorrow morning, you'll take this to the Federal Patent Office. Once you register the Calyx process under your name, the Calder legacy shifts. Every legal right tied to the technology reverts to you. The company, the patents, all of it." I stared at him. "That's billions," he nodded once. "And more importantly, justice." My thoughts spun. My father's warnings, Luke's betrayal, the letter, the photo. It all led to this. The key wasn't just wealth. It was vindication. I closed my eyes, the weight of it all pressing down. "What happens to Luke?" Marcus hesitated. "He's still your blood. What you do with that is up to you." I turned to look out the window. The fog had thickened, swallowing the streets in white haze. Somewhere beyond it, I knew Luke was still out there, angry, humiliated, dangerous. I whispered, mostly to myself, "He won't stop." Marcus's gaze hardened. "Then neither can you." By dawn, I stood in front of the Federal Patent Building, a glass and stone monolith that gleamed in the rising sun. Inside my coat pocket, the Calyx archive pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. I took a step forward, then another. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. For a second, I thought it was Rowan again. But when I answered, a familiar voice came through. Older, colder. "You've made a terrible mistake, son." My blood froze. "Victor," I said quietly, "you think hiding behind Marcus will save you?" His voice was smooth, controlled, the voice of a man used to owning everything. "You're playing a game you don't understand. Walk into that building and you'll start a war. It's already started," I said. "You just didn't notice when Dad declared it." A pause. Then a chuckle. "Your father was a fool. He built an empire on ideals. I built one on reality. Guess which one survived?" "You mean, stole one on reality?" I snapped. Victor sighed. "You sound just like him. Naive. Emotional. You think this will make you a hero? You'll drown in lawsuits before you even get the patent filed." "I'll take my chances." "Then so be it," he said. "But don't say I didn't warn you." The line went dead. I stared at the phone for a moment, then slipped it back into my pocket. The doors to the building loomed ahead. I could feel the weight of my father's voice, the echo of Marcus's warning, and the shadow of Luke's rage behind me. When I finally stepped inside, the air felt electric, charged with something that wasn't quite fear and wasn't quite courage. I walked up to the counter, placed the Calyx archive on the desk, and said the words I'd never thought I'd say in my life. "I'm here to register a proprietary patent under the name Ethan Calder for the Calyx process." The clerk typed something on her computer, glanced up at me and nodded. "Application received." As I turned to leave, the morning sunlight spilled across the marble floor, catching the reflection of my father's name engraved on an old plaque near the exit. Calder Steel Industries, Established 1974. For the first time, the name didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a beginning. But just as I stepped outside, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. The driver's door opened slowly, deliberate, calculated, and stepping out, his coat immaculate, his expression unreadable, was Victor Calder himself. "Going somewhere, son?" he said softly. "We need to talk." The morning sun flared off Victor's polished shoes as he stepped toward me. His presence still carried that boardroom gravity, a man who'd never needed to raise his voice to command obedience. Even after everything, part of me understood how he built an empire from nothing but willpower and fear. But now, standing outside the patent office, his power felt brittle, like a shadow stretched too long by time. "Ethan," he said almost warmly, "you've grown into quite the dramatist." I didn't respond. My pulse was steady, my hand resting inside my coat pocket, fingers brushing the cold metal of the Calyx archive. Victor's gaze dropped briefly to my hand, then rose back to meet my eyes. "So you finally found it?" "I didn't find it," I said. "Dad left it for me," he smirked faintly. "He left it for whoever was smart enough to follow the trail. You just happened to get there first. That's not what Rowan or Marcus said." He chuckled, a sound without humor. Marcus Kane always meddling. That man could never let go of his savior complex. "Tell me, did he also tell you how many lives your father's secret destroyed?" "He told me about your theft," I snapped. Victor's eyes flashed. "Theft?" He stepped closer, voice rising slightly. "I built Calder Steel. Your father was an idealist, a dreamer who buried profit under principle. Do you think compassion keeps workers fed? That sentiment builds industries. He believed people mattered more than numbers. And look where that got him," Victor said coldly. "Dead before his time. Broke, forgotten." I stared at him, anger mixing with a strange, hollow pity. "You really believe that, don't you?" He smiled faintly. "I don't believe it. I know it." For a second, neither of us spoke. The noise of the city filled the space. Passing cars, the distant wail of a siren, the rhythmic click of a woman's heels on pavement. Then Victor's tone softened. "Give me the archive, Ethan. You're in over your head." "I can protect you." I shook my head. "You don't want to protect me. You want to bury me?" His eyes narrowed. "You think I'd hurt you?" "I think you already have," I said quietly. That landed like a knife. He flinched, barely but enough. "Ethan," he said, his voice tightening, "you don't understand what you're holding. That device contains more than formulas and patents. It contains evidence. Records your father kept, of every illegal deal, every offshore transfer, every payment that built this company. If you release it, it won't just ruin me. It'll ruin thousands of people." "Then maybe it's time the truth ruined something," I said. The muscle in his jaw twitched. "You sound just like him. I'll take that as a compliment." Victor sighed, the cold mask slipping just a little. "You think you're the hero here, but you're just another Calder chasing ghosts. When you open that archive, you'll unleash things you can't control." "Then I'll deal with it," I said. "But I won't be silent." He stepped closer until we were almost face to face. I could see the faint scar near his temple, a reminder of the steel mill accident he once bragged about surviving. His voice dropped to a whisper. "You think you're doing the right thing, but you're a pawn, Ethan. Marcus wants revenge. Rowan wants leverage. You think your father's dead, but in this game, death is never the end. There are things you don't see yet." "Then open my eyes," I said. "Tell me the truth." For the first time, Victor looked tired. The arrogance faded, replaced by something older, heavier. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small folded letter. The paper was yellowed, creased, the kind of thing someone keeps for years. "This was written 2 days before your father died," he said, holding it out. I hesitated. Then I took it. The handwriting was unmistakable, my father's bold, deliberate strokes. "Victor, if you're reading this, it means you've gone too far. You'll see this as betrayal, but I see it as balance. I can't fix what we broke together, but maybe Ethan can. Whatever happens, don't hurt him, not because he's my son, but because he's yours too." The words blurred in front of me. I looked up at Victor. His face was unreadable, but his eyes betrayed him. guilt buried deep beneath the surface. He was lying, Victor said hoarsely. He always wanted to divide us. Then why didn't you tell me? I asked. All these years, why let me grow up thinking I was nothing to you? Because you weren't supposed to be part of this, he said. Your mother wanted out. She didn't want the business, the blood, the corruption. I thought I was sparing you. By pretending I didn't exist. His voice broke just slightly. By keeping you alive. Silence. The world seemed to slow. The sound of cars dulling, the wind fading. Everything collapsed into that single unbearable truth. My father, my uncle, my blood. He wasn't my uncle at all. I took a step back, the ground shifting under me. You lied to everyone. I protected you, he said. I shook my head, tears burning the corners of my eyes. No, you protected yourself. For a long moment, he didn't argue. Then, with that same cold control he'd always worn, he adjusted his coat. If you walk away from this, you'll lose everything. But if you hand me that archive, I can make it right. We'll fix this, together. I looked down at the archive in my hand. It pulsed faintly, as if waiting. Maybe in another life, I would have believed him. Maybe if he'd told me sooner, I could have forgiven him, but not now. I met his gaze. You already had your chance. I turned and started walking. He didn't stop me. He just said quietly, almost to himself, You're more like him than you know. By noon, the registration was official. The Mao, Calyx process, was filed under my name. Rowan called once to confirm, his voice steady. It's done then. Yeah, I said. It's done. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't. Because when I stepped outside again, a folded piece of paper fluttered against the windshield of my car. No envelope, no signature, just 6 handwritten words in black ink. Dock 19, tonight. Come alone. M. Marcus. The docks were silent that night, the fog rolling in thick over the black water. Cranes loomed like skeletons against the pale moon, their cables swaying in the wind. I parked near Dock 19 and stepped out, the air smelling of salt and rust. The water slapped softly against the pier. A single light burned at the end of the dock. Marcus stood beneath it, coat collar turned up, hands in his pockets. You came, he said. You told me to. He nodded. I didn't tell Victor everything. There's something you need to see. He reached into his coat and handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a photograph, an old one. My father and Victor stood side by side, smiling. Between them, barely 10 years old, was me. What is this? I whispered. The last day we were all together, Marcus said. Before the split. Before your father hid the process. Before the accident that changed everything. I stared at the photo. The way Victor's hand rested protectively on my shoulder. The way my father's eyes seemed proud, but sad. Marcus's voice softened. They weren't enemies back then. They built something extraordinary. But power, it corrodes. One wanted to share it with the world. The other wanted to own it. You're what's left of both. I looked up at him. Why are you telling me this now? Because the story isn't over, he said. Your father's death wasn't an accident. And if you want the truth, the real truth, you'll have to be ready to lose everything again. A chill ran down my spine. Are you saying, Victor? Marcus held up a hand. Not here, not yet. You've made your move. Let the world react. When the time comes, I'll find you. He turned to leave, his figure dissolving into the fog. I called after him. Marcus, what am I supposed to do now? He stopped, barely glancing back. Build what they tried to destroy. And then he was gone. I stood there for a long time, the fog curling around me, the letter heavy in my hand. Behind me lay a legacy of deceit, power, and blood. Ahead, an empire that needed rebuilding. As I walked back to my car, I looked at the city skyline shimmering through the haze, the reflection of lights on water like molten steel. Alive and moving. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing someone else's shadow. I was forging my own, and somewhere, deep down I could almost hear my father's voice again. Calm, steady, proud. You weren't the mistake. Ethan, you were the plan.